Welcome back to the Bleacher Preacher podcast. It's NBA Day. The most popular sport in the country is back, and we can't wait to talk about the preview. It's Johnny Boy here, and I'm with Rob.
What up?
Rob, NBA season, NBA Twitter, the shenanigans, the pettiness, the dunks, the Splash Brothers, everything is back. I want to get this right out of the way. Do you think basketball, specifically the NBA, is the most popular sport in America right now?
In America, yes, 100%.
Would you call it the fastest growing sport in the world?
In the world, no.
Okay.
Well, fastest growing, yes, because football is already established. Football with you is already established. I would say growing, yeah. Fastest growing sport, yeah.
Well, I don't know if you guys saw there was an article published recently about the NBA officially taking over the United States, dethroning football as the tier sport. I'm on the fence about the issue right now. I still think football is the edge because they still own a day of the week. But the NBA right now is making strides of owning, 2-3 nights a week. And star power is as deep as it ever was. Teams are looking stronger. There's a new competitive balance, not so much in the East, but we'll get to that later. Needless to say, though, I'm excited to have the NBA back, Rob. I'm sure you feel the same. Let's get started with the Eastern Conference preview. Me and Rob are going to run through the teams 15 through 1 in the East and the West. Apologies to some fan bases of teams if we don't give you the love you think or not take as much time with you guys. We're going to try and be as objective as possible. And mind you, I'm doing this in a Boston basketball t-shirt, so I'll pump the brakes when need be. But let's get started with number 15, Rob. Who do we have as last in the Eastern Conference this year?
Atlanta. I have Atlanta last. So Atlanta's in a rebuilding year, you would say. A rebuilding time period. I don't think Atlanta's going to be relevant for the next 5 years, I want to say. It might have been – this might be the draft where it shapes the next 5 years of Atlanta. Trading away Luka Doncic and picking Trae Young. Trae Young could be the next Jimmer Fredette. Trae Young could be the next Steph Curry. We don't know. That's the biggest thing, having Trae Young in the building, having Trae Young grow. John Collins is there. John Collins is good. Other than that, it's really who can you get for Kent Bazemore on the trade block? Who can you get for Jeremy Lin on the trade block? That is all that Atlanta is there for. It's a feeder team to the playoffs, and they're just rebuilding. That's hitting for Atlanta. They had the good run with the 4 or 5 All-Stars and the 60-win team and all that. They just, it's over, and it sucks for Atlanta sports, but that's just, how it is in the NBA. You're going to go through periods where you need to rebuild and get more assets, and that's where we're at with Atlanta.
And I think when you mentioned the Doncic trade for Atlanta, a lot of people thought, if you're a team like Atlanta that doesn't have a real identity, not a lot going for you, that's someone you would almost take a risk on because it's already a lost season. So I think time's only really going to tell the true winner of that trade. For Atlanta, Coach Bud is out. So it's a whole new regime in Atlanta. Not really expecting much out of them, like you said, except Trae Young. I think he's going to be an exciting player, but like you said, it's that basement and ceiling that really intrigues a lot of people, because for someone who was such a volume scorer in college, we haven't really seen that translate to the NBA as well. And with the minimal support he's going to have, he's going to be putting up 20, 25 shots almost every single night.
Yeah, and we'll see if him taking 30-foot jump shots or, just off the dribble, 5 seconds off the clock, 30-foot jump shots. He might make some on some nights, and he goes crazy and he gets 35. And some nights he might shoot 3 of 15 and have 10 points. We're going to go through the growing pains. They should try to lose as many games as possible, get that number 1 pick, and try to get another blue chip guy next to Trae Young to help him stand out. Moving on, I have Orlando 14. Orlando is the most frustrating team in the past 10 years. All these high draft picks, all these talents that have come in and out of Orlando. Victor Oladipo has come in and out of Orlando. Nikola Vucevic is a good player. Now they have Mo Bamba, Aaron Gordon, Jonathan Isaac. Like there's so much talent that has been in Orlando. It's just Orlando never puts it together. And now we have where they can throw out a a lineup where Jonathan Simmons, Aaron Gordon, Jonathan Isaacs, and Mo Bama's on the floor, and they could literally go basket to basket, touching each other's hands. That's that much wingspan is on the floor, so they're going to be exciting up and down, going up and down the court, playing defense, using their length, but they're going to have a ton of growing pains, and that's just Orlando. It's just a frustrating team in the past 10 years.
And I think with Orlando, it's going to be patience and getting guys on the right spot. We had actually mentioned on one of our very first NBA podcasts, Orlando's roster never makes sense. Like, guys are never either supported the right way or playing completely out of position. And that, I think, what makes them so infuriating is because there's basketball talent there. And this is going to be year 2 with Frank Vogel. So maybe there's going to be some progress. I don't know. But things just don't look bright right now in Orlando. Thank God they brought back the nice jerseys.
Yeah, so I like Mo Bamba. He's going to be great. I think Nikola Vucevic is probably going to get traded, and he's going to end up being like an Enes Kanter type of role. When Enes Kanter was on the Thunder, have somebody that'll come off the bench that can score in the low post, grab some rebounds. Vucevic will help a playoff team out. Mo Bamba should be starting at the 5. Aaron Gordon should be starting at the 4. We say this every year. Aaron Gordon should not play small forward. He should be a stretch 4. He should be playing pick and roll, and he should be rim running. And then he should be pushing the ball up the floor off rebounds. And every year, they play him as small forward. Like, he really should not play at the 3. He should be a 4 and only a 4. And Jonathan Isaacs can come off the bench, play the 4 and the 5. And that's a nice little nucleus. But it's always been frustrating watching Orlando.
Extremely frustrating, but again, let's see what the future holds. They could be another sell at the trade deadline. We could see Aaron Gordon find somewhere new. They just need to find direction and commit to it, but at least some decent young pieces in place, and I think they'll be okay. Number 13, Rob.
So number 13, I have New York.
The New York Knicks. Again, free agency pipe dreams not really translating to on-court success. There were reports in the offseason Kyrie was considering the Knicks in free agency with a team up with Jimmy Butler. You can't necessarily rule it out yet, though Kyrie has already said he plans on returning to Boston in the offseason. But as for this season, though, not a lot has changed for the Knicks. Kristaps could be out the entire season. The best case scenario comes back post All-Star break, but by then the Knicks will, if things go as planned, will be clearly out of the playoff run. So you don't really want to rush back your one true piece right now. And Kevin Knox, right?
Yep, Kevin Knox, the rookie out of Kentucky.
Yeah, he looks nice. He had a pretty good summer league performance and has shown some flashes in preseason as well. So him going with what I call French Frank Nikitalina. Did I get that right?
Nitikalina.
Nitikalina?
Yeah, I think it's spelled Nitikalina.
He's French Frank, but New York has some, again, kind of like Orlando. Pieces are in place, but still some ways away. The New York media and New York fans will always dream of having free agency rescue them again, but I don't see that happening anytime soon, and I don't think we'll be getting playoff Madison Square Garden for quite some time.
Yeah, it's just another rebuilding year. Kevin Knox needs minutes. Mitchell Robinson, their other rookie, I like a lot. High energy, 7'1", good rebounder. He can be a game changer. He can be a piece at center, moving towards the future. Just get Kristaps healthy. Get Nitikalina another year under his belt. Knox a year. Get Mitchell Robinson a year, and try to get a top 5 pick, get a Cameron Reddish, get a Zion Williams or an RJ Barrett, somebody in that nature, and go after somebody in free agency. New York is still New York. Madison Square Garden is still Madison Square Garden. The mystique is still there. If they sign a Kyrie and a Jimmy, the mystique is still there, and the Knicks can always be the Knicks. That's never going to change. It's just like the Lakers in the Western Conference. The Lakers could be bad for a couple years, but that New York Knicks fan base is still going to support them and still going to talk about how good that they can be and the attraction that the Knicks are. So really, it's just a lost year. Now I have them finishing 13th, but the last 5 spots in the East, I feel like it's only like a game separating them all. Atlanta, Orlando, The Knicks, I think like they're all going to win less than 30 games, and it depends who tanks harder. So we'll see.
What just a last thought on the Knicks. What would you put the percentage chance of KD ending up on the Knicks next season?
I have it at a 50% chance.
50.
Yeah. So the theory that the working theory that I have right now is that KD leaves Golden State after another championship, which frees up the money for Golden State to re-sign Clay to the Supermax. Clay and Steph gets the Supermax, Draymond gets the Max, and KD goes to different pastures and gets his own team. You know, he did the whole let me go win a couple championships, and he's probably going to win 3. And now he's going to go on his own team and we're pretty much ride out the rest of his prime.
He's going to follow the LeBron path. He, secured his legacy, with a different team, and now he's going to go grow his brand. So why not do it in the – could you imagine KD living back in New York City, though, and going to Rucker Park like every Monday or like Sunday night and just dropping 60 again?
Just shooting, yeah.
By far, the best summer of the NBA is when there was no basketball.
That was my working theory is he's either going to the Knicks or he's going back to OKC. Those are my working theories right now for Durant.
We will have Durant watch, trust me. Team number 12, Rob, who do you got?
Chicago.
So the Bulls, who tried tanking last year, somehow were winning games in stretches, which was the most infuriating thing for a Bulls fan like Rob. But then things kind of plateaued a little bit. Then team kind of spiraled. Losses to our
I'll tell you what happened. Nikola Mirotic came back from a broken face and then like started hitting threes and on like a non-sustainable clip. And then they won like 10 games in a row. And then they traded Mirotic and then they started losing again. So I think it was Nikola Mirotic coming back and just like putting a spark in Chicago for some reason. But Chicago is just another lost year. Zach LaVine's going to be back to 100%. You got to make sure he gets minutes. Got to make sure he's healthy and he's a piece moving forward. This is the Jabari year. Chris Dunn is a nice young point guard, but Chris Dunn is not your top 10 point guard. I don't think Chris Dunn is ever going to be a top 10 point guard. I think Chris Dunn is more your middle of the pack, 15 to 20. Your Jeff Teagues of the world. I think that's Chris Dunn's ceiling. He's still going to be a good defensive point guard. And it's just the 2 young bigs that they got to develop. I think Robin Lopez is going to get traded. Wendell Carter is going to get a lot of minutes at center. Lauri Markkanen when he comes back. He's going to be a starting power forward. Bobby Portis. There's a lot of young guys, but there's no really star. There's not that one star on the team. And I think Chicago is still a good free agent destiny. I think it's going to be an Anthony Davis sweepstakes. The Chicago boy, Anthony Davis. I think that's who they're going to go hard after. But other than that, just gotta develop the young guys, play good basketball, and hope they get a star in the draft or a star in free agent or trade for Anthony Davis. Not much in Chicago.
Kind of like New York. There's pieces there, but it's going to be a little bit of a long road. I know you being a Bulls fan, it was frustrating to watch a good core slowly fall apart, starting with the Derrick Rose injury back in 2012. And now here we are 2018, and they're already rebuilding, towards something completely different. Again, basketball is, I think, better when a team like the Bulls are relevant. So hopefully they are back in the mix here pretty soon.
Yeah, so that's another one of those bottom tier teams. I'm going to lump Chicago in with Atlanta, Orlando, and the Knicks and Chicago. I don't think there's going to be much separating them. Team 11, I think, is your separation from the bottom of the conference to a team that might fight for the playoffs, and that's Cleveland. I have Cleveland at 11.
Really? So Cleveland, who, they lose LeBron. Well, let's just be honest about it. They lose LeBron, and we made the jokes last year on this very podcast that Cleveland is nothing without LeBron, and now we're going to see it for a whole season. Kevin Love, J.R. Smith, Larry Nance Jr., Channing Frye, some other pieces around. I just don't see how this team is really competitive. I was actually surprised you had them this high.
Well, they're 11, so they're not really that high. They're still missing playoffs by a wide margin. It's just with the East, there's a lot of teams that are going to have off nights. There's a lot of dweller basement teams. you're going to get your money, you're going to get your wins off of. I like Colin Sexton. He is very, very competitive. I love what he brings. Jordan Clarkson, there's a time and place where Jordan Clarkson, J.R. Smith, guys like that, Chetty Osman that might contribute. I'm banking on them doing it together at one game, one time, eking out a win somehow against like a middle tier team like a Detroit or like an Indiana or something like that. Kevin Love is still a top 30 player in the league. Tristan Thompson is helpful in certain areas, I guess. There's not much to say about Cleveland, but I still think Cleveland's better than an Atlanta or a New York or Orlando or Chicago just because they have Kevin Love, and I think Kevin Love's the best player out of those 5 teams. I don't think they win. I don't think they finish above 500. I think they win 37 games as their peak and their ceiling. So it's just, back to the dark age of no LeBron for Cleveland.
Well, it's funny you say the dark age because you look at the first post-LeBron era, that team was I believe, back-to-back lottery winners, correct?
Yeah, they got Kyrie. They got Deion Waiters with, what is it, the 5th pick? Andrew Wiggins, Anthony Bennett. They had 3 number 1 overall picks, and they have Thompson. Yeah, Tristan Thompson was a number 4 pick. So all they have to show from that is Tristan Thompson.
Yes, and it's funny because you want to say they didn't manage the roster correctly, but they still got that one title out of it, and I know it's a lot to kind of like balance out, but they got their one.
Yeah, if you're Cleveland, you have that one title. You had LeBron James for what is it like 10 out of his 14 years in the league. What was he? 03, 15 years. So 10 out of the 15 years in the league, you've had LeBron, and you got a title out of him, and you had multiple final appearances out of him. You really can't complain. You can't complain for the next 5-10 years, and that's your chance to rebuild. So we'll see with Cleveland. I don't have much more or much to expect out of Cleveland, but they're there, I guess.
I look back at Cleveland, and especially this past season, and it was funny. Me and you would watch some games together, and we would look up, and I think it was a Saturday afternoon game where Oklahoma City scored like 80 in the first half, and we're thinking like, are they even trying on defense, or like what's going on here?
Yeah, Terrence Ferguson was running down courts doing windmills and stuff. Like,
I don't know if they corrected the hustle and the effort there. I don't know if they're going to become more prideful, or they actually going to play with more of a purpose. So I'm not going to watch a ton of Cavaliers basketball, but that's something at least to keep an eye on to see, is this team even going to give a damn?
It's going to be a lot of talent rating in Cleveland. I think J.R. Smith can help a playoff team. I think Tristan Thompson can help a playoff team. It's just Tristan Thompson's cost a little bit too much.
Who's going to take a lot of those contracts?
Yeah, the contracts is what is going to hold this team down for the next couple of years. But I still think like there's still pieces on that team that can help a playoff team that somebody might come say, hey, we'll take JR. Here's a 2nd round pick. He costs too much, so you're not getting a first, but here's a 2nd round pick for your troubles to give us JR. So, I mean, we might see some talent rating, but I don't expect much from Cleveland. Next team.
10.
Or go ahead. You have any finishing thoughts on Cleveland?
Nah.
All right, so next team, Charlotte at 10. Just barely missing the playoffs.
And I think that's kind of been the theme for the Charlotte Hornets now, since they became the Hornets again, is they just haven't been good enough to get into the playoffs. I know how much you love Kemba Walker, but I don't think any of their draft picks have really panned out to help him out. Frank Kaminsky hasn't been anything special.
Cody Zeller hasn't been anything special.
I was going to say they have a Zeller, I think.
Yeah.
Somehow Michael Kidd-Gilchrist is 26, I think. 25, 26.
He came out the same draft as Anthony Davis, and him and Anthony Davis are the same age. Michael Kidd-Gilchrist and Anthony Davis, they were both freshmen.
I look at Kidd-Gilchrist, and I know he had a I think it was a labrum issue a few years ago, and he couldn't shoot before then. So his offensive abilities have just never grown. And the reason I'm bringing this up is, we talked about Kemba possibly, being moved, and Charlotte has been adamant saying, no, we're holding on to him. He's our piece. I just don't see it with this team, and it's been frustrating because Kemba's been good, and I think it was last season. Yeah, last season they draft Malik Monk, who was going to be, a a solid, 2 or 3 option, and he struggled at times too. So this is another one of those rosters where I just don't see it happening quite yet.
I do have them finishing outside the playoffs, but I do like certain parts of the team. So the starting 5 is going to be Nick Batum, Michael Kidd-Gilchrist, Marvin Williams, Cody Zeller, and Kemba Walker. Now, when those guys got drafted, like when Cody Zeller was a top 5 pick, Michael Kidd-Gilchrist was a top 5 pick, Marvin Williams was a top 5 pick, Kemba Walker is probably the best player on this team, best player in this franchise history, maybe. You probably say maybe Baron Davis if you're going back to the old Charlotte Hornets or Larry Johnson, but Kemba Walker has enough time and enough years and enough moments in that uniform where he might have a stake as the best player in franchise history. Now, that being said, I like Malik Monk. I like Miles Bridges, the draft pick this year. Jeremy Lamb's still there as well. I mean, there's talent on the team. It's just you can't really go far with Kemba Walker being your star player. You need Kemba Walker plus somebody. Kemba Walker plus Anthony Davis will make this a playoff team. Kemba Walker plus Jimmy Butler will make this a playoff team. Kemba plus Kawhi will make this like a very talented team. They just don't have that second star to pair with Kemba Walker. And that's where they failed since having Kemba Walker is finding a star to pair with him.
And I think it's funny is, you said Anthony Davis or Jimmy Butler would make this a playoff team. They make a lot of teams a playoff team, which is kind of where I'm in the inclination of we need to free Kemba almost, or they need to make a major splash. Probably one of the weirdest moves though in the offseason was Tony Parker signing with the Hornets. Do you think anything for him?
I forgot Tony Parker was on that team.
I know, it's so forgettable.
Like there's a collection of talent. Tony Parker's gonna play 15 minutes a game and spell Kemba and be a good locker room guy, a good leader, good veteran presence. But this isn't Tony Parker from 2007, so I don't see much. This was just his last payday before he retires. Honestly,
can you blame the guy? I think him and Nick Batum are really good friends from when they were on the French national team. No.
Yeah, probably. Can we get a Boris Diaw reunion? I heard Boris Diaw is on a ship somewhere sailing the world.
I was gonna say I saw something like once he retired he was gonna go become like a wine connoisseur somewhere, but now he's gonna go like live out his life.
Yeah, I like Legolas at the end of Lord of the Rings when he like built a ship and then went to go sail the world. Like that's Boris Diaw right now. Boris Diaw is literally sailing the world in a ship, which that must be the life. Like I'm jealous of Boris Diaw.
Well, this may come as no surprise. Along with Game of Thrones, I have not seen any of the Lord of the Ring movies. All right, team number 9.
Brooklyn.
So
I have the Nets finishing 9th.
So it's funny with Brooklyn. They finally got the draft picks back. Sorry, Billy King. Brooklyn has made like a habit of bringing in players and contracts that other teams just want to get rid of or kind of cast it off. And they've always, since they did that roster purge and draft pick purge, they were always, bottom feeders. They didn't really have much to look forward to. Well, towards the end of last season, I was starting to see something in the Brooklyn Nets I really liked. D'Angelo Russell was healthy and coming on strong. Spencer Dinwiddie came out of absolutely nowhere. And the center, Jared Allen, actually exploded into a decent post presence too. So Brooklyn, I know, doesn't have, name-breaking talent, but I think they can actually be competitive this year and give some teams some problems just by how hard they've been able to play the past couple of games. I'm not expecting much from them this season, but at the same time, they got nothing to lose. And granted, they could lose more and actually get a decent draft pick and a decent asset now. But I think they're going in the right direction.
I would not be surprised if Brooklyn wins 38, 40 games and sneaks into the playoffs. You don't have to win. You don't have to be 500 to make the playoffs in the East. I think somebody might win 40 games. I honestly think somebody might finish 40 and 42 and make the playoffs as the 8th seed, and that might be Brooklyn. I love Spencer Dinwiddie. I love Karis LeVert. I love Rondé Hollis Jefferson. I love Jared Allen. There's a ton of guys on that team that like I love the way they play. They hustle. They play hard. I love their coach Kenny Atkinson. They just like that hard-nosed, gritty team that just needs a star. I don't think that star is going to be D'Angelo Russell. I think D'Angelo Russell, I don't want to say a bust, but he's not going to live up to being the number 3 draft pick. Um, I mean, the guy drafted ahead of him, the center, Jahlil Okafor, it sometimes you're drafted too high, and I guess D'Angelo Russell, he's not going to live up to that number 3 draft pick, but that's fine. He's still a good scorer. He'll get you 20 a night. He just, I don't think he needs to change the scenery. I just think he needs to put it all together. He hasn't put it all together yet, and I don't know if he does it with Brooklyn. I don't have high hopes that he might ever put it all together, but he's still talented.
No, and I think that's when the Lakers decided to move on from Russell. That was going to be his change of scenery. Like, we're going to give you this fresh start and everything. And he's had flashes, and I think that's one thing to his credit. He has raw talent. He's not a volume scorer or a volume assist guy. He does everything pretty good. So he's a good piece for Brooklyn. But, to your point earlier, if they somehow get a hold of a Jimmy Butler or another one of these pending free agents, or are able to have a decent star fall into their lap, they could make some noise.
Yeah, definitely. The next team, we're going to move on to the team that I have in the AFC making the playoffs, Detroit.
So with Detroit, you have Blake Griffin, Andre Drummond, and what I looked at this roster, not a whole lot else to get excited about. I know Reggie Jackson was I don't want to say marquee or like a big signing, but someone Detroit brought in a few seasons ago, but he hasn't really put together since he got there. Luke Kennard is now going to be linked as the guy who was drafted before Donovan Mitchell. They get rid or Stan Van Gundy finally exit out. They bring in Dwayne Casey, who had a solid run up in Toronto. So I look at Detroit. I think they'll be good enough to win some games, but I think that's just what the 8 seed in the East is. It's like, okay, you're here. Now you're going to have to play one of the top teams.
Yeah, if you're Detroit, you're going to be 40-ish wins, and you're going to make the playoffs, and you got to play the number 1 seed, whether that be Boston or Toronto. And that's not where you want to be. Like, you don't have prime Blake Griffin. You have an aging Blake Griffin on his last legs. Andre Drummond is good, but he's never going to be a Dwight Howard level guy that's going to take your team to an Eastern Conference Finals like Dwight Howard was with Orlando. Reggie Jackson is the point guard that was jettisoned out of OKC. He wasn't the point guard you wanted out of OKC, but you're stuck with Reggie Jackson. He's not a Mac. Like I said, the Jeff Teague tier point guards, the 15 to 20, that's what Reggie Jackson is. Luke Kennard is fake JJ Redick. I mean, that's you have some talent. Stanley Johnson hasn't improved since he's been in the NBA. Can he defend? Sure. Can he run the floor? Sure. Is he still young? Yes. Still can't shoot. Handball handling, passing, still not there. He's a body. There's some talent there, because I think with Andre Drummond and Reggie Jackson and Blake Griffin, that's more talent than Brooklyn. That's it's more talent than Charlotte. That's more talent than Chicago. So they're just talented enough to be the AFC, but that's not really what you want if you're Detroit, just to be talented enough to be a first round sweep.
And I think when you mentioned Blake Griffin being on his last leg, is he never really looked explosive the past couple of seasons. You see him settling for mid-range jumpers and like kind of finessing his way to the basket. So he's definitely a far cry from what he was in Los Angeles as the high flyer, highlight reel dunk guy. So I just don't know really much more we can expect from Blake at this point in his career. And my point about Andre Drummond, do you think he can keep up shooting his free throws in the high 40s, low 50s this year?
I mean, I guess he's never going to be anything more than that. I mean, guys last year, like Clint Capella, learned how to shoot free throws. DeAndre Jordan's become a better free throw shooter. Whatever they did over the offseason to become a better free throw shooter, they need to pass along to Andre Drummond.
And I just don't see it really making a difference, because today's NBA is about spacing and being able to shoot, and that's just never been in Drummond's repertoire.
Yeah, he's, like I said, he's never going to be Dwight Howard. Orlando, when Orlando made the Eastern Conference Finals with Dwight Howard and a whole bunch of shooters, Andre Drummond is never going to be as good as Dwight Howard then. And, that's what Detroit is stuck with, fake Dwight Howard. Moving on.
Number 7.
Number 7, Washington.
So the Washington Wizards, John Wall decided to grow out his hair and looks like he's been going through it a little bit. Um, they bring in Dwight Howard. You know, it's funny, we are just talking about him. And Bradley Beal is coming off his first All-Star appearance. We looked at Washington last year as a team that could have been, you know, a real competitor in the East, but they just never really caught on. And they actually started winning some games when John Wall was out for a little bit of time, and it just amounted to a playoff sweep. So with Washington, they don't again change much. So what can we really expect from them?
Like I said with Detroit, they're just more talented than the other teams, but they're not as good that they're going to move on to the next round. They're just going to be 4-0, 4-1, and done in the first round. You know, John Wall, Bradley Beal, Oubre, Otto Porter, A. Morris, Dwight Howard, like that's a good top 6. That's talented than half. That's more talented than half the teams in the East. But you're not going to get home court. You're not going to get home court unless John Wall turns into Russell Westbrook and Bradley Beal turns into Klay Thompson, and that's not going to happen. Otto Porter turns into fake KD and Kelly Oubre becomes like a glue guy. Like that's not going to happen, and you can't really blow it up. So they're just stuck with what they have, trying to add some pieces here or there, and maybe get lucky in free agency or the draft. And it's not there. It's just a middling team.
And I think we saw them put a lot of their eggs in the KD basket a few off seasons ago, where they thought they could reunite Kevin Durant with, you know, his hometown of Washington, D.C. and Scott Brooks. And, you know, it was going to be him, Bradley Beal, John Wall. They were going to be the new big 3 in the East. And after coming up empty on that, they never really had another plan to go forward. So I just haven't been impressed by Washington lately. John Wall looks lazy at times. He just doesn't seem interested. And I know there have been reports of a dissension between him and Bradley Beal, but sometimes it speaks on the floor. You know, it's like what we were thought these two were best friends. They just stopped getting along. And, you know, me and you have kicked around the idea of who would you rather have or who would you trade and what would they bring back in return. So maybe Washington needs to really consider what they want to do with their roster here and kind of look themselves in the mirror and think, well, how far is this really going to take us? And do we want to end up as one of those basement dwelling teams?
This is one of the teams where they should have went all in on Kawhi. The Wizards should have took a Brad Beal or a John Wall. And they really should have went to San Antonio and was like, hey, who do you want for Kawhi? Like that's what the Wizards should have done, was gone after a Kawhi or gone after a Kyrie or somebody like that in the trade and try to, you know, remake their roster. But they're stuck in their ways. They didn't make their rosters, and they're going to pay for it by just being the 7th seed and having pick number 18 and, you know, not finding a superstar. That's just all you're going to get with Washington. Moving on, number 6, Miami. Miami number 6.
So with Miami, I've always kind of liked their makeup. They always find a way to bring in these long, athletic guys who they might not be polished in some areas, but they compete and they're hard to score against. And I think that's what Miami's kind of running back again. Goran Dragic, I think, finally got his due as being an all-star last season. Granted, it was a replacement, but he finally got in the game that he deserved. Josh Richardson, you really like what I really like what he brings to the table as well. But this big story with Miami this year is the Dwayne Wade farewell tour. It's kind of crazy to think, like, you know, slowly but surely that 2003 draft class is going away. And, you know, it was him, Chris Bosh, Carmelo Anthony, LeBron James. And now here we are.
Nick Collison.
It's just crazy to think how this has all passed us by. And now Dwayne Wade will be hanging him up at the end of this year. Before we get too much into the Miami Heat, I just want to ask you one question about Dwayne Wade is, where do you think he ranks amongst all-time shooting guards?
Is Oscar Robertson a point guard or a shooting guard?
Point guard.
So then Michael, Kobe, Dwayne Wade. Yeah, Michael, Kobe, Dwayne Wade. I think he probably is the third. But is AI a shooting guard or a point guard?
AI's got to be a point guard. I'm sorry. He was the primary ball handler.
Yeah, true, but years, it was AI as a two guard with like Eric Snow as the point. You could convince me AI. If AI is on the two guard list, I think I'd take AI over Dwayne Wade. I think I'd take Dwayne Wade over Vince Carter. I think I'd take Dwayne Wade over Tracy McGrady. I'd take Dwayne Wade over Rip. I'd take Dwayne Wade over Joe Dumars. I'd take Dwayne Wade over Jerry West. I'd take Dwayne Wade over John Havlicek. I take Dwayne Wade over Mitch Richmond. I take Dwayne Wade over Chris Mullin. Take Dwayne Wade over Reggie Miller. What other two guards are out there? Doug Christie? Nope. Doug Christie probably doesn't even make the top 52 guards. Take Dwayne Wade over Jason Richardson. Take Dwayne Wade over Brandon Roy. There's not much two guards in the history of the game that I don't take Dwayne over. I take Dwayne Wade over Jimmy Butler. I take Dwayne Wade over James Harden. I take Dwayne Wade over Klay Thompson.
Well, I think needless to say, Dwayne Wade is going to be a first ballot Hall of Famer. Probably one of the most unique talent sets we've seen out of an NBA guard. His ability to slash to the basket and then just be absolutely lethal on his finishes. Multiple titles, easy decorated career. So we're gonna miss Dwayne Wade. We hope he gets a nice send off this year. But back to the rest of Miami Heat. Do you have any realistic expectations for them again?
I think they're more Washington than Milwaukee, Toronto, Boston. As in, they're more bottom of the pack than top of the division. If they fight for home court, sure. I see it, but I think they're going to be fighting for their playoff lives more than they are going to be fighting for home court. I like Bam Adebayo. He's going to be solid. Justice Winslow, if he learns how to shoot, he's going to be great. Right now, he's just a good defender, a good hustle guy, like James Johnson, Tyler Johnson's. Yeah, Tyler Johnson's making way too much money to what he's actually worth. Josh Richardson, I love. If they trade for Jimmy Butler, this team is going to look a lot better. But we'll see. This might be a Jimmy Butler trade destination.
What do you think was the package that eventually was in play, or that was in place, but Miami eventually said no because Minnesota was asking for too much?
I think it was Josh Richardson and a first-round pick, and Miami offered Josh Richardson first-round pick for Jimmy Butler, but Minnesota wanted them to take Gorgui Dieng's $16 million a year, which that's a lot of money for Gorgui Dieng. Keep getting them checks, Gorgui Dieng. That's all we got to say.
I remember when he was still at Louisville, and Louisville had a game at UNLV, and I watched this man walk through the tunnel, come around a corner, and completely ate it over his own feet. And I'm thinking, how is this guy a 5-star Louisville recruit? And they went on to post double-double against UNLV, but that's neither here nor there. Yeah, I really
number 5.
Yeah, number 5.
Number 5, Indianapolis, Indiana Pacers. I was thinking Indianapolis Colts for some reason.
The Indiana Pacers. So we get Victor Oladipo's breakout season last year, which was a pleasant surprise. Good to see him finally put it all together because I've always liked his game going back to his days as an Indiana Hoosier. They give Miles Turner. Yeah, Miles Turner?
Yeah, Miles Turner.
Okay, Miles Teller is the actor. Okay, I got
it. Yes, Miles Teller is the actor.
Miles Turner gets a nice little payday here right before the season starts. So looks like Indiana is investing in this core, but we saw them give Cleveland a good push last season, pushed them all the way to a Game 7, but ultimately fell short. They run back pretty much the same core. So can we expect Indiana to make another playoff run here?
I think they're more bottom dwellers than they're more pretenders than contenders. They're better than Miami. They're better than Washington, but I don't think that they are in the league of Milwaukee, Toronto, Boston, Philly. I like Oladipo. I like Domantas Sabonis. Sabonis is really, really good. I like Miles Turner. Tyreek Evans is now on this team. Doug McDermott is now on this team. Their point guards is Darren Collison. Darren Collison and Corey Joseph, not really ideal, but I guess it works. There's a lot of good players on the team, It's just how far can you really go with Victor Oladipo being your best player? You
I
know,
think
Charlotte doesn't go anywhere with Kemba being the best player. How far is Indiana going to go with Oladipo being the best player?
they really wrote home the notion of team basketball, and you kind of look back to the Grizzlies when they were during their run, how they were very keen on being very gritty, very hard to score on, just guys giving effort up and down the floor. So I don't know if that formula is really going to translate to success nowadays. That's just the sense I get from Indiana. And like I said, outside of Oladipo, there's no really big names that are going to jump out at you. They're just kind of banking on running back last year's success and then adding some guys that may have had some upside somewhere else. So I think Indiana will be good. That's going to be a team that's not really going to beat themselves too many nights. Probably towards the bottom of a league pass ranking because, again, there's just not a lot of excitement or buzz that comes from an Indiana Pacers team. And after we thought, losing Paul George a couple seasons ago, like this team was going to be destined to, not really live up to much. So I was happy to see them, kind of turn it around really quickly and, make the playoffs and be a tough out. So maybe they can do it again. Who knows?
Yeah, so moving on, number 4, home court, Milwaukee. I expect big things out of Milwaukee. My pick for MVP this year is Giannis. That's all I got to say. Milwaukee. I think Giannis is going to average 30, 10, 5, blocking a steal.
Well, getting a real coach is going to help because Joe Prunty was absolutely useless. I don't think there was any excuse for Milwaukee not to beat Boston in the first round last year. The Celtics were down, obviously, Gordon Hayward for their whole season, but they didn't have Kyrie Irving. So that was Milwaukee's chance to really break out and for Giannis to really become a mainstay in the NBA as far as, superstardom. So I still think he's on that way. His talent, I think, is sky high. A lot of people expect him to make the leap this year. You're giving him MVP. I think he's going to be right in the middle of it. So I don't know if Milwaukee is going to, make the same mistakes they made last year. They changed out the coach. They got Eric Bledsoe the hell up out of there with his passive aggressive attitudes and demeanor. So I think Milwaukee will be another tough team to contend with. There's nobody in the NBA that can defend Giannis. Good luck if you can. I know some teams only hope to contain him or, maybe he decides to have an off night. But once he starts developing that outside shot, good luck. That's all I can say is the NBA.
He's taken a lot of threes in preseason. He's made a lot of them. He's never going to be he's not going to be a spot up 3-point guy. He's not going to be a pull up 3-point guy, but when he comes down the court, it takes 2 steps for him to get from the 3-point line to a dunk. Half a dribble, 2 steps, and he's there to dunk the ball. So a lot of guys, they're going to be on their heels. They're going to be backing up, and he's able to walk into his threes. If he's able to do that consistently and walk into and hit a couple of threes where guys have to check him, as soon as he crosses half court and guys have to check him, he's going to get a lot of blow-by opportunities. He's going to get a lot of posters. He's going to dunk on a lot of people. And he averaged 26 and 10 last year without a 3-point shot. He adds 1 3 a game. He's gonna break 30 easy. Like, this man is ridiculous. He's put on more muscle this offseason. He's gotten bigger. He's adding a 3-point shot. He's the future of the league. Whenever LeBron wants to stop being the best player in the league, Giannis is probably going to be the best player in the league.
To the other players on the Milwaukee Bucks, it's not that we don't like you. It's just that your best player is a transcendent talent, and we've never seen someone built like him before. I do like Chris Middleton. He was a absolute lethal knockdown shooter in the playoffs last year, and one of those players that when you go to Milwaukee, you never really hear much out of him. But I think he'll be a solid contributor, and I'm going to look to the rest of Milwaukee's team to kind of actually help Giannis out. Jabari Parker's no longer there, so it kind of was a bust for Milwaukee to not get that true superstar out of him. But in turn, they got Giannis, so I think Milwaukee they can make some noise in the East. Don't rule it out yet. So
Yeah, the starting five with Malcolm Brogdon, a rookie of the year, Chris Middleton in a contract year, Eric Bledsoe, Brooke Lopez, Giannis. It's okay. Giannis makes it so much better than what it can be. Chris Middleton as a number two is really good. Chris Middleton is going to earn a very big contract this year. 40% from three. He's going to average 18, 20 points. He's going to be the second fiddle. He's going to play defense. I like what Milwaukee has. I just think they need more to win the East and make it to the finals, something like that. But Giannis is my pick for the MVP, like I said. And that's really all I got. Moving on, number 3, Philly.
All right, Philadelphia. So we recorded this on opening night. Philadelphia came up short against Boston, but we love Philadelphia's roster. We love the guys that they have. Ben Simmons, there's no other point guard like him. Joel Embiid, if he stays healthy again, that's another all-star season and an absolute nightmare in the post. But we're looking for their other guys to contribute. Ideally, JJ Redick to shoot lights out once again, Robert Covington to be their 3-and-D guy, TJ McConnell as a spell point guard for Ben Simmons. And then there's Markelle Fultz, who a lot of people thought was going to be the number 1 pick last year. Boston backs out of it, hands it over to Philly, so Markelle Fultz lands in their lap. And then injuries and just a lot of mystery around him. So I'm looking for a bounce back year for Markelle, and if he can contribute to the Sixers this year, watch out.
Markelle as a defender is actually he's an animal defensively. He's 6'4". He's a very big guard. He's big. He's a very big guard. He's strong. He's going to be a really good defender. Ben Simmons is a very good defender. Rocco is a very good defender. Joel Embiid is going to protect the paint. He's going to protect the rim. This might be a top 5 defensive team. Like, I really think that Simmons and Embiid are probably going to make defensive All-NBA. Markelle Fultz might get votes. JJ Redick is a savvy guy, savvy defender. I like what Philadelphia has. The question mark is Markelle Fultz. Obviously, if Markelle Fultz, he continues playing good defense and he comes out, and it's the Markelle Fultz that we saw in the University of Washington. It's the Markelle Fultz that is coast to coast, big, strong, finish with both hands, crazy pull-up spin move. He's got, KD said it, that hezzy pull-up Jimbo. If that Markelle Fultz comes in, Philly might get the number 1 seed. Like, I have him finishing 3rd just because I don't think Markelle is going to be the Markelle Fultz from University of Washington, but there's a chance that he discovers that magic and, he's back, and this might be a number 1 seed. Right now I have him finishing 3rd, sure, because I think the next 2 teams are better, but Philly is going to be scary to watch.
No, and I think that's what Philly can at least have their pride on, is they were a force last year. It was a great breakout season to see Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid on the floor at the same time. This could complete the process. If Markelle Fultz is able to live up to his hype and regain his college abilities, I think this could be a title contender. Philly has a great home court. They have length and energy all around, and Brett Brown, I think, is one of the more underrated coaches in the NBA. So I know tonight wasn't a good look for Philly, but it's one of 82 games. They're going to be just fine. They're going to run through the East, and they're going to give Boston and Toronto some tough outs here. So if I'm Philadelphia, I'm fine with where I'm at. They made a run for LeBron in the summer just because, hey, why not? They got nothing to lose at this point. The 5+ years that they spent tanking and acquiring draft picks and developing these guys, this is now when we want to start seeing it pay off. You can bring all these guys in. They're on relatively friendly deals. This is your chance to make a move in a weakened conference with no LeBron. Philly, I think there's a road for them to make this happen. Will they need some breaks? Yes. But at the same time,
I think they're 1 piece away. I think they're 1 piece away from winning the East. They just need one more talented piece, and that's either Jair Smith, the rookie, being better than advertised, or Markelle Fultz coming back. They're just missing that 1 piece to put them over the hump and being better than Toronto or Boston.
And I think it's there. I really think they can do so. I know they kind of were underwhelming against Boston in the playoffs last year, but that I think was their big introduction to to Showtime, to being in the limelight of, all eyes on us. They got that experience last year. Now I don't think they have anything to be afraid of. For Ben Simmons, I don't know how you defend this guy outside of letting him stand at the 3-point line. For someone who can literally give point guards, shooting guards, small forwards, power forwards, and even some centers some problems, you don't see guys like that every day in the NBA. And once Ben Simmons learns to get a shooting touch, we could be looking at one of the most complete players since LeBron.
He had 19, 15, and 8 tonight. Yeah, that's ridiculous. Without a jumper. I still think he's shooting with the wrong hand, but, that's neither here or there. Let's move on. Number 2, the Boston Celtics. Number 2 in the East.
Okay. No, I honestly, I'm not necessarily surprised by it because I'm not 100% sold on the Celtics being the write-in for the Eastern Conference representative for a couple reasons. I don't think there's enough minutes to go around. I think you have two players too many right now. They run back their team from last year, plus Kyrie Irving coming back, plus Gordon Hayward. It's no guarantee that Gordon Hayward is going to be the same player yet, because with a injury that gruesome, we don't see players bounce back right away. So it could be some time before Gordon Hayward is back to himself. You have Jason Tatum, who is primed to be the next breakout star in the NBA. But at the same time, you have to find him minutes along with Jaylen Brown, who again is emerging as a young star. And then you look at Terry Rozier, Marcus Smart, Marcus Morris, Aaron Baines. Like, these are all guys who got significant minutes last year and now have to kind of agree to take a step back and, be okay with accepting their new roles. I know there's going to be rough patches, but I want to think Brad Stevens can get out of control. But the NBA is driven by a lot of egos, and a lot of these guys know their stats are going to get them paid. And for someone like Terry Rozier, who's going to hit free agency, he's going to want to be able to showcase his skills. He had a hell of a playoff run last season, absolutely phenomenal, but I still would have rather had Kyrie Irving in some spots over Terry Rozier, just for the fact that, Kyrie is that natural scorer. He's someone that can break down a defense and knock down shots from all areas of the court. With all that even being said, as much as I love my Boston Celtics, not exactly guaranteed to run right through everything yet.
Gordon Hayward's behind schedule. That's fine.
They can afford
still
that.
Have all those pieces. Yeah. Kyrie is still Kyrie. Kyrie has picked up some injury knocks the past couple of years. Well, Kyrie's picked up injury knocks his whole career pretty much, but Kyrie is still a top 5 point guard. Terry Rozier is my pick for the 6th man of the year. Al Horford's still there.
What I was going to say is what I like about Boston is they can, like you said, is afford to have some of these guys not be 100% ready to go. I think the goal is have everybody ready by, say, like March, April, when, your money games are coming up here. So the East is going to be easy to run through. But I think their top 4 competition, the Milwaukees, the Phillies, the Torontos, those are the teams you got to worry about. And I think all 3 of those teams can give Boston problems. Yeah, they were able to handle Philadelphia tonight, but again, that's one game out of an 82-game marathon. So I'm not going to put too much stock into it, but I'm still excited about the Celtics. They're my personal pick to still make it out of the East, but I don't think it's going to be as easy as some media is making it out to be. You got anything left on the Celtics?
I think Milwaukee and Philly are going to be in your 50-win tier. I think Boston's in the 60-win tier with my number 1 pick, my number 1 seed out of the East, Toronto.
Your favorite team that you don't want to admit to. You love the Raptors.
I love them now because they got Kawhi. If Kawhi is healthy and on this team and rolling, and also if we see 2016 Kawhi, this team is going to win 65 games. And, that's not a knock on Boston. Boston's going to win 62, 63 games. Boston goes 62-20. That's a great season. I just think Toronto can have a better season than that. And, there's only Boston's probably going to have like the 3rd or 4th best record in the league. Western and Eastern Conference. I just think Toronto is a little bit more talented. If you look at that roster, who's the best player? It's Kawhi. Between the two teams, Kawhi is probably the best player, and that's just barring health and injuries. Now, by the end of the year, Kawhi might have half a leg. The robot parts didn't get shipped in. It might have been, a recall. It might be his leg might have a recall on his leg, and he's not 100%. That could happen. But I'm going into the season thinking that Kawhi is healthy, and Kawhi is going to make a run at Defense Player of the Year, and Kawhi is going to make a run at MVP. They added Danny Green. I love OG Anunoby. I love Pascal Siakam. I love Serge Ibaka, Jonas Valanciunas. You can go big, and you can play OG Anunoby, Serge Ibaka, Jonas Valanciunas, and Kawhi Leonard at the 2 with Kyle Lowry. You can go small and play Kawhi at the 4, Siakam or Ibaka at the 5, and play Anunoby and play Danny Green and play Kyle Lowry. This team is going to be a top 5 defensive team in the league. It might be the best defensive team in the league, with Danny Green and Kawhi joining in. They can guard 1 through 5. They can switch. They can do everything. They have enough personnel to play against any team in the league. I just like the versatility. I like what they bring to the table. I like the players. I like the role players. I like, everybody has a role that they need to do, and they're going to do it well.
No, I think you're right about everything with Toronto. They play probably the best team basketball outside of maybe the Golden State Warriors. Everyone has a defined role. Everyone contributes on a nightly basis, and probably the best home court advantage because you have the whole country pulling for you. I know the Kawhi DeMar DeRozan trade caused a big ripple effect. You pretty much changed the power dynamic in 2 conferences with one transaction. So if Kawhi is able to regain that NBA Finals MVP form, it could be tough sledding for the NBA East because if Kawhi's back to being who he wants to, there's not many players like him. And I want to see him succeed again. I think the NBA missed having a player like Kawhi last year. And, when seeing him in that Raptors jersey on media day was kind of like okay, this is going to be a real thing. We're going to see this happen. And, outside of the creepy laugh he has, I think Kawhi's primed to have a good season. I think this is going to be that fresh start for him. Everyone's going to be rallying behind him, and this could be a call for him to re-sign in Toronto. So do you think he ends up staying and re-signing in Toronto?
I do 100%. Who I don't see staying in Toronto is Kyle Lowry. I think Kyle Lowry's gone.
Why, really? You like Kyle Lowry. Why would he want to leave?
I like Kyle Lowry, but I feel like they're going to shake it up even more. And I think if they get Kawhi back and they re-sign him, they might move on from Kyle Lowry and try to move on to somewhere else, somebody else. They've already moved on from DeMar DeRozan and brought in Kawhi. I think Kyle Lowry's next. I would not be shocked if Kyle Lowry's gone from Toronto next season.
And the last point I want to bring up for the Raptors is Dwayne Casey is let go after the season. They get swept by LeBron again. So LeBron is now no longer in the conference. Do you think the Raptors should have kept Dwayne Casey, or was this coaching change necessary?
I think it was necessary. The splitting up DeMar DeRozan and Kyle Lowry, letting Dwayne Casey go, I think it was necessary. I would have been 100% fine if they brought Dwayne Casey back and did not trade DeMar DeRozan and just ran it back. I would have been 100% fine. I think it's necessary just to take a risk. You either take a risk and move forward, or you take a risk and you fail like you have the past couple of years. It's not a lose-lose, but it's not a win-win, but you don't want to stay complacent. You're always trying to make your team better. And Dwayne Casey ran his course. Yes, he won Coach of the Year. Yes, they were the number 1 seed, but they ran its course.
This is all very true. So that does it for the Eastern Conference. Just some last points we're going to leave about it. My Eastern Conference champ is going to be the Boston Celtics. Who's yours?
I have Boston versus Toronto, and I've yet to pick. You got to ask me during the playoffs.
Okay, we'll definitely check back in that. Who's your surprise team in the East?
Surprise team is Brooklyn. I 100% think Brooklyn has a shot at making the playoffs.
Okay, and just to be different, I will go with the Charlotte Hornets. Pretty much does it for the East then. Always been the underwhelming conference. But now let's go to where Showtime now resides, the Western Conference.
We'll start at the bottom.
We're starting at the bottom. We're starting at the bottom.
Yeah. We're going to start at the bottom. We're going to go with Phoenix. I have Phoenix going 15th.
So Phoenix wins the lottery. They get the talented center from Arizona, DeAndre Ayton, so he goes right up the freeway to from Tucson to Phoenix.